Well, welcome back to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon from Trapping Inc. TV. Today we have a very special guest, a fellow who has a very active YouTube site, Scott Mackner. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks a lot, Richard. I appreciate it.
Your YouTube site, 330 Maniac, right?
Yep, that's correct.
That has to do with your love trapping beavers, right?
Yeah, actually, that's actually where it started from, and it kind of exploded, I guess, from you know, uh, actually it started as a trapping channel originally. I used to watch a lot of YouTube trapping videos. I guess 8-9 years ago, and I would watch some of these videos, and I would just kind of say to myself, like why are they setting that trap there, or what's going on here? And I just thought, well, I think I could make a better video, so I think my first like 60 or 70 uploads were probably all trapping videos.
Oh, it's good. And I've watched your channel. I enjoy your stuff. And I think the biggest problem that we have as we do stuff, get very familiar with what we're doing, and that is too much is just done without talking about what we're doing.
Yeah,
and I think that's
absolutely.
one of the good thing about yours. You're always explaining, and I really enjoy that.
Sure.
Let's go back to your personal history, where you started, how'd you get into trapping, and what made you decide to that a YouTube site was where you wanted to go.
Well, my dad got me into trapping back when I was, when I was just a boy. Because I have some pictures of him holding up some processed beaver when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and he would take me with on the muskrat line. I actually have memories of taking sticks and like hitting the ice where bank dens were for beaver, because he had a trapping partner. But I just remember going from that and then getting older. There was actually points where when I was 15 or 16 years old, then I became kind of his trapping partner. And he would even pull me out of school to do a trap check early.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it was great. I just, the teacher would come down and say, "Hey, Scott, you're wanted at the office," and I'd get there and my dad would be there, and I'm just like, and I knew I didn't do anything wrong, well, usually anyway. And he's like, "Oh, we gotta go someplace and whatever." But I knew, I'd get in the truck, and sure enough, he'd have my, my snowmobile suit and my boots and everything. And he's like, "Well, we're gonna go out and we're gonna go out and set 50 traps today or whatever," and it just, yeah, it kind of grew from there. Mostly growing up, my dad, muskrats were the bread, and that's what he projected to me. Muskrats were the bread and butter of trapping. We had a lot of them around. They weren't worth a ton of money, but we'd catch a lot of them. So I was only allowed to trap beaver on ponds where there were beaver on that muskrat pond. So beaver always held this fascination with me, because I'd maybe catch, a dozen beaver a year, and I'm just like, "Oh, I want to catch more. Look at that big beaver house." And no, there's no muskrats on that pond. So
Whereabouts are you at, Scott?
I'm located in north central Minnesota, I guess, Detroit Lakes area.
Oh, yeah. I had
So
I had a London boat once and I had to deliver it back there for repairs.
sure. Yep, New York Mills, that's where the home Malone boats.
Yeah. I think the repair plant back then anyway was in Detroit Lakes. I think
it could have been.
It was just, when I pulled up, I was just amazed, because it was just this one building, basically in a field full of turkey sheds, and
that sounds about right. There's a lot of turkey buildings around here.
Yeah, there is a lot of turkey buildings. You drive by, and there's basically no walls on the side, and there's about 10,000 turkeys there staring at you.
and even if you can't see them, you can smell them.
Oh yeah, a lot of ammonia with them.
Absolutely.
So muskrat and beaver.
Muskrat and beaver was the prime thing, but he got me into, we didn't, when I was that 13, 14, gosh, let's see here. I have pictures from a lot of pictures, from like 93 through 98, 97. Sorry. My dad he passed away in 97 from lung cancer. But
Oh, that's
I did trap a lot of fox, and raccoons, man. Back, back when I was a kid, you could go to any culvert passway where there's a cornfield, and there would just be a beaten down trail, and we'd go down and put in some footholds, or if we knew the farmer, I'd go put some 220s, and we got a little bit of everything, and it was so much fun. But like I said, beaver and muskrat were mostly what we targeted, and then well, my dad passed away, and actually I probably took when my dad passed away, I took a couple years off of trapping and kind of lost interest, how it goes. I made some mistakes. I was mad at the world, so I sold
yeah.
my deer rifle I had bought, and just made some, I was mad at the world. Well, what happened? I lost my trapping partner.
That's tough. That's
So
tough.
it was tough at the time.
Especially when it's your dad. I mean, it's always tough to lose dad, period. Let alone to be your
Yeah,
trapping partner and somebody that you do a lot of stuff with. There's a lot of kids today though that will never have that bond with their dad. Their dad's got some
no,
job, they've got their iPhone, and the two of them never cross. You know what I mean? Um,
sure,
you were
absolutely,
lucky for the that you got to spend with your dad, and the stuff that you learned and did with him. There's a lot of
yeah,
kids today who don't got that.
no, and yeah, and God, my mind went blank there for a second. Yeah, I had, I've gotten messages, um, you know, YouTube, they used to have, could send messages to people, and I don't think they have that option anymore. I can't remember, but I've gotten a few messages over the years where, a guy says, hey, thanks for the videos. Like my kids and I got back on this common ground, and it's because of you, and we love all, just love being able to connect in the outdoors. And
Oh,
it's just nice hearing that kind of stuff.
we get those kind of things too, from the TV show. And I had this happen to me. We were in a town, we were doing a sports show, and we were doing seminars, and that this guy comes up, and turned out he sponsored to have us there. I didn't even realize it. He comes up and he
Oh,
shakes my hand, and he says, I just want to thank you for giving me my son back. And I was like, what? And he says, well, my son was going down the wrong road. He was in a dark place, and he says, and we weren't talking to one another. We were fighting, and it was bad. And he says, one day I was sitting there, and your show came on TV, and he sat down and started watching it. He says, now my boy's back. And he's getting all choked up, like a tear in the eye. And of course, big softy I am. I'm getting a tear in my eye too. It's like you have no idea the impact you have in somebody else's life. None.
absolutely. And it's such a good feeling to hear somebody tell you that, after the hard work of all the trapping, all the cold, all the editing, everything that, people come up and tell you stuff like that. It's what really makes it worth it.
And it's funny because so many people have very harsh ideals about consumptive uses of the outdoor resources, hunting and trapping especially, and they have a hard time understanding how much that means to some people. When that sort of thing fires off, it's just like a little recharge to the old battery for me. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I'm on the right track. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So what is it with beaver with you? Like, what's the deal? Like, I mean, I still see all of these YouTube, every year you're out there chasing those beaver. And what is it?
I think it's the size of them, and I just, excuse me, just something about a big beaver lodge, especially, around here where I'm at, there are, and a lot of people don't understand that too, is there's so many beaver. A lot of people are like, you're so lucky you got so many beaver around there. And if I had a party popper full of BB that shot 5 miles, I could shoot it and, you know, and hit a dozen, two dozen pounds of that beaver in them.
Yep.
And there's just something about going to a new lodge and seeing, that big trail of bubbles across the ice, or the wide open runs, and you're just excited because that's such a money set, and you just know tomorrow there's going to be something's going to happen, whether you get the beaver or you got a sprung trap, or it just, traps loaded. I don't know. I just something about seeing a big chunk of fur floating in the water just gets me.
Well, I'm jealous because you have a lot longer shoulder season than we have, where you can see those bubbles where, like we freeze up and the snow comes at the same time. Sometimes the snow, you got that much slush. It's been snowing for days and you got that much slush on the beaver pond and it freezes solid. We don't get to see much of that. Like
Go ahead.
I just find it's so cool. And we've got to talk about this later here, but how you find your bank dens and that, because that's really cool. Like something that's just something that we don't find, or else we set a trap for kind of waylay on the way in kind of thing. So I'm pretty jealous of your that big long shoulder season you have for beaver. Ours, if I need beaver in the fall, like for bait, I will take some. Otherwise, I don't. I don't waste time with them until it's like January, and then you're getting really good beaver through the ice. I had somebody contact me though here a few weeks ago, and where they're at, they're trying to there's a move afoot to try and stop beaver trapping because they say there aren't enough beaver in the area, and the fellow wanted to know if I knew of any studies that talked about how to stop how to increase beaver population, and if stopping trapping was one of the key important things. And I was like, I'd never heard of anybody trying to increase the beaver population. I mean, we dynamite them, we shoot them, we trap them, and we will never run out of beaver. I mean, the landmen from my oil companies, like on my registered trap line, I've got 144 square miles on my registered trap line. That's mine exclusively. And I don't know how many thousands of beaver we have there. Like, I mean, I don't even know how many hundreds of bodies of waters and ponds and creeks and everything else. And I tell them, like, I'll do everything I can for you, but it's you're never going to get rid of beaver. You might get rid of all of them today, but tomorrow another one comes, because prime habitat is never empty for long. So I mean, beaver is not something that we're ever going to be able to eradicate. It'd be like trying to eradicate white-tailed deer or coyotes. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's around. Well, when you get to other states, and we don't have a limit on muskrats, or we look at, like, is it, I think Mississippi, they have no limit on otter. We're allowed 4, and there's a lot of them around here. And then when you tell them, you're like, oh, I got 4, and they're like, well, we have thousands. Well, or I think it's Ohio has a limit of like 10 beaver, and they're like, how can you trap that many beaver without trapping them out? And I don't know if there's a Trapper Jay from Missouri.
I think, yeah, I've probably seen him on Facebook. Yes.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine. He's a good guy, good trapper. But he came up here late last winter, to do some fishing. He'd never been up here, and he likes to trap beaver. It's always in channels, but he's a fantastic all-around trapper. But he's sending me pictures of beaver lodges that are in ditches, because he's not used to ice. He's used to maybe a crust of ice, but he's not, and he's like, man, he's like, I can see how you have so many beaver here. And I always wonder, how does he catch, whatever 50, 60 beaver and not run out, and if other people seen that, they would be like, now I get it,
Yeah. It's really amazing. You talk about never seen ice. This was back a few years ago. I was doing a little bit of guiding. Well, I actually wasn't even that. I mean, I was fishing professionally on the PWT, but a friend had a guy coming from Texas, worked for the same oil company that he worked for, and he wanted to hook me up. The guy had never caught a walleye. So he never caught a walleye, and he comes like in January, February, and it turns out it's really cold. So I take my youngest boy with me, Jake, and I take him up to a lake that at the time was really renowned for big walleye, and I don't think nothing of it. We wheel out there and out across the ice. Well, this guy just about jumped out of the vehicle. He says, "You're driving out there?" And I said, "Oh yeah, there's lots and lots of ice, right?" And we go out there, and of course, yeah, there's I think there was 40 inches of ice because I just barely got through with my auger. And then it's cold. It's in the 30 belows. It wasn't quite 40, but like, 35, 36, that kind of thing. So you're familiar with this. The ice booms and cracks and
Oh
groans.
yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it booms over there, and then you hear this and a crack comes right across the lake and right through between your legs. And while he was jumping and dancing, and poor guy. I mean, I probably wouldn't have handled my first scorpion any better than than he handled the crack on the ice, right? And I try to show him how to jig and how to be, very, that time of the year, you're very slow and very, just off the bottom. And my son Jake is so good at this, right? And he's jerking and jumping, and I says, no, slow, calm. And I'm catching a couple, but that's not the whole idea. Is that I'm not supposed to be catching. Well, then Jake pulls up an 8-pounder, and then Jake pulls up a 9-pounder,
Okay.
and I'm like, Jake, the idea is he's supposed to catch I don't know, Jake was 9 or 10 at the time or something, so it was made no difference. It was pretty funny. But the best part of the whole story is when we're going home, of course, the afternoon, the sun would come out, and now it's probably up to just 30 below zero. And the kids are all out on the different farm ponds playing hockey. Well, we had to stop at everyone so he could take pictures. He says, they're playing ice hockey on a farm pond. And oh
Oh my
God, I
God.
love traveling the world because it is so cool to see stuff through somebody else's eyes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Trapper Jay, same thing. He had never drove in the lake, and I'm like, because he had a nice new, or he had a nice truck, and I'm like, we're gonna be driving. We went for the first lake we went. He'd never caught a northern pike, if I remember right, and that's what he wanted to catch, And here you can throw anything in the water somewhere and catch a northern pike, But he's
Yeah.
like, I'd like to catch a big one, So we went to this pond. I'm like, all right, we're gonna drive out there. And he's like, all right. He's like, I believe you. And I think we had about 30 inches of ice, and we got there, and we got out there, and there was, it was a public lake. There was probably a dozen fish houses spread out and this and that. He's just like looking around shooting video, and I just can't believe it. And he had a hand auger, and I'm like, I want to see you drill some holes, and we both got video of ourselves just drilling holes. And then we tried to two-man it, two hands on the handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had an electric auger, I said,
Yeah.
here, use this, and drill the hole. He's like, whoa, I need me one of these,
Yeah. For the next time,
yeah,
12 years from now, when you see ice.
yeah. Same. Hopefully he's gonna make it back up here again next winter. Or maybe I can make it down to Missouri. Especially with the YouTube stuff, it's great seeing new people, and I would like to travel a little bit and do some stuff I just haven't done before,
Have you ever caught yourself yelling at the TV, telling the people that were hunting, fishing, or trapping they were doing it wrong? I know, we all do it. I do it. Well, here's your chance to come out on my trap line with Sandy and I and tell us what we're doing wrong. We are having a contest. We are giving away 3 days worth of trapping out on our trap line with us. All you have to do is get yourself to Grand Prairie, Alberta, and we will take it from there. We'll pick you up, we'll take you out to the trap line, and we will return your frozen carcass or your smiling face to the airport 3 days later. All you have to be is a member of trappinginc.locals.com. Be a supporting member. The draw is on September 1st. It's really, really simple. You go there to trappinginc.locals.com, and the very first post up on the news feed, it tells you how to enter and how to get in on this. We are easygoing. We are going to have a pile of fun. We are looking forward to having some new, fresh faces out on the trap line with us, and you're going to be a star or a guest of an episode of Trapping Inc. Season 8. Okay? Simple, folks. Don't miss out. This is a great trip. Number one thing that gets requested of us is, how can I send my husband trapping with you guys? I'm willing to pay money. Well, maybe I shouldn't be advertising to you. I should be advertising to your wives. Come to trappinginc.locals.com and become a member. Simple. Don't miss out. And now let's get back to today's show.
Tell you what, we are very tired of what's been going on for the last 16 months because we haven't had sports shows. We haven't had anything. and it's our border opens. Ooh, I think Sunday. Our border opens for you folks to come
August
up
9th.
here, but I don't know whether your side of it's open for us. I booked a hunt in West Texas for the middle of October, so it better be open.
One of the guys at the office here, he has a shared cabin up, up in Canada, and I can't remember what lake it was, but and he loves going up there, and he's been dying to go. He's like, walleye fishing isn't the same around here,
Yeah.
and it really isn't, because you're not up at your cabin relaxing for the weekend or whatnot. So he had planned on they'd planned on going, so we'll see.
Yeah, it opens. They got to be vaccinated. They got to have both shots of vaccine or whatever. And
Yeah,
crazy world we live in, man. Crazy,
he
crazy.
he has the vaccine, or he's been vaccinated with both shots, and then previous to going to the border, he has to bring literature to show that he's had a COVID test within like 36 hours, a negative one within 36 hours.
Yeah.
And I mean, that nose swab they used to do, I don't know how they do it anymore. I think it's saliva now, but when they originally had it, I actually had COVID July a year 13 months ago. I was one of the first people to have it.
No kidding. What was it like for you?
Well, I actually was coming to work one day, and we just have a little tiny house. We're just a couple people. I took my daughter out to supper, and we went to Subway, and I was eating my sandwich, and I noticed my pop tasted kind of funny, and I just thought, oh, the pop's watered down. Next morning, I got up, I grabbed a Red Bull, and I almost made it to the shop, and I took a drink of my Red Bull, and instantly I'm like, I cannot taste this at all. And I'm like, I felt just like I do now. I'm like, no. So I just drove up to the shop doors, and I messaged my business partner and said, you know what? I said, I think I might have COVID. So I'm not coming back into the shop until, because like I said, there's just a couple of us in here. So I went and got a test and went and stayed home. And then like 6 days later, I got a call from the nurse, and she's like, yep, you tested positive. So I told him, and like he went home, and then there was one other gal here that went home. And then I just stayed at home, and throughout that whole process that it had me staying home, one night I had the like hot sweats for like part of the night, and then I woke up and it was July. So I thought that like I couldn't get enough blankets on me. I felt like I was laying out beaver trapping, like, in some shorts out on a beaver lodge. And then I woke up and I felt normal. So, one night chills and stuff. But I did have some fatigue, tired all the time.
Mhm.
And that lasted about 4 days or so. But I'd get up and do everything, it's almost like just being tired at work.
Okay.
But I didn't have any other effects, and my daughter ended up getting it like 6 months later, and she was kind of in the same boat I was. But tell you what, people, when they found out I had it, I waited the 2 weeks I was supposed to go back to work, and then I waited an extra week, to make sure that I was beyond whatever. And when I told people I had COVID, they were like, get away.
It's a cold, people.
Yeah, and nobody around me, like my daughter didn't catch, and my daughter she was confined with me at home, and that whole 14 days she never caught it, which is amazing to me, because she's in close contact, and the people that were at the office, nobody around me caught it, just me.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Do you know who Randy Newberg is?
Oh gosh, I don't think
On
so.
Your Own
Maybe.
Adventures. He's a hunter. He has very, very, very successful hunting podcast, YouTube and all that too. Anyway, he's a friend from Montana, and he caught it on his last, like on the last trip last December, coming home from his last hunt and everything, and he caught it. Just about killed him. Like it really, really got him sick in that. And his wife caught it. And I says, oh God, how was it for her? Oh, he said it was brutal for her. She couldn't taste her coffee for 3 days.
I don't,
He says so. And you got to
person, you know, and the next person, it doesn't do nothing to them.
I know, like, I mean, Randy was, he's the kind of guy, he's very, very, very humorous, right? And him and his wife, you know, give each other heck all the time, and they're very happy couple. But you know, every time he tells her she better listen, she says, "Oh, you just about get killed by a bug. You're not so tough." You know what I mean?
That's the kind of relationship that a guy wants.
Oh, definitely,
That's funny.
definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk beaver then. What's
Okay.
your favorite set? You know, walk me through you walk up to a new pond. You know, how you find those bank dens. I want to know all about all this stuff.
Man, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's a toss up. You know, I could say I got two favorite sets. I don't know if that's plausible. You know, I got
Yep.
one for under ice, obviously, and
Yeah.
so I get a call. Actually, last winter I got a call from somebody just outside of town here, a couple miles. They bought a house and they had some cattle pasture to it, and they called and said, "Hey, the beaver, excuse me, have dammed this thing up, you know, and the lodge has been there for a long time, but you know, the water raised another 2 feet this year." I get there, and right away, the one thing that gets me really giddy is I'll get there and seeing something with a high bank close to the lodge, because I automatically know that you almost guarantee that there's going to be some bank ends along there.
Okay.
So I automatically, and what a lot of people don't know is, I found these bank ends, 100 yards from a beaver lodge. The beaver, they can travel that far to one of these, and often it's the really, you get really big beaver way away, in these bank ends. And,
I think it's the old man. When he gets tired of listening to her, he takes off and goes there for a day or two. I tell you, the only bank den that I know how to find is that when you've got that dam, right? And if that dam butts into a good bank, there's one right there. And the way that I catch them, because I mean, everything freezes up so much. The way that I catch them is I'll have a baited 330 hanging perpendicular to the dam. And when he's on the way to that bank den, he'll run into it. But the way you find it is fascinating.
Yeah, I actually I just have a spud bar. It's actually the ice chisel that I use. I've had since my dad gave it to me when I was like 12. I've lost that thing in beaver runs a couple times. I've almost drowned trying to get it back. Like, I set it on a beaver lodge one time, and it did the bobsled off the run down, up left down into the run, and I couldn't touch the bottom of this run to save my life. And I'm like, oh no, and I'm just hoping that it's stuck in the bottom. And this was in late November, so the lake was frozen, but it wasn't frozen in front of the lodge. So I found this like 15-foot pole and shoved it across the beaver run. Now I'm shimmering out on this pole like 4 feet from the lodge, just bouncing on this pole, dangling my feet down. And I can feel the knob on that chisel. I touch it with my toes.
Oh.
So I grab it with the bottom of my feet like this. And now I'm trying to hold my legs, and I'm going across this pole, and I can feel the chisel in my feet, and I just please don't slip, and now I bring my legs up, and there's no other way to get it. Then I didn't have rubber gloves on, so I just shoved my arm down the chisel and pulled it back up. But that's a short story, but I've almost lost that chisel so many times, and I still have it, which is it's tough to find a good chisel nowadays.
It is. I've made it. I've made mine, but like, I mean, I think I'm on version 4.0 or whatever, because I lose them. Literally, you'd be going, worst part is for us, like in January, and you'll have 2-3 feet of snow. And the scariest part is getting on that house. Okay. Like, I know pretty much that the least amount of ice is going to be on the south side of the house, because that's the last place to freeze up in the winter and the first place to thaw in the spring. So I know there's going to be a main run there. So I'll try and come in along the backside, but you park the machine a long ways away, because man, that's where, if you're going through anywhere, it's right there, right?
Sure.
But I have went up there, and I'll be walking on the house, and you'll be doing this with the spudna, and then and it's gone. And sometimes you shovel away the snow and it'll be 40 below and there'll be no ice. Like it just gives you the chills every time it happens. And I've done it like 1,000 times, and 1,000 times the hair on the back of my neck jumps straight in the air, right?
And you don't know what, once you punch that chisel through left, right, there's, I've even taken the chisel and swung it like a bat where there's been no ice and hit the ice, or the snow, I should say, and like 4 feet of snow will just cave into that run. There's just so much activity, even though it's, been 10 below out for, a week.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much those beaver can keep those runs open,
Oh, and it's just their activity. And you soon learn how much that current accounts too, right? I watched one of your videos where a beaver dam had lost water during the winter. And
Sure.
it showed, you were showing the different runs into the house, and that for one thing, there's way more runs into the house than you ever dreamed of, isn't there?
There is. I got so many holes going in there. You're like, I wonder, I can't catch that last beaver sometime,
Well, I know there was one that I trapped the heck out of. I took 9 out of it, and I was pretty sure I had them all. The only thing I wasn't sure about is it wasn't that far away to another house that they were using, and I took 9 out of the one and 3 out of the other. And okay, I'm doing okay. I figured I was doing okay. Well, anyway, they ended up losing the water, and I put this on one of the seasons, 6 or 7 anyway, and it showed it. They'd lost all the water, and when they'd lost the water was late in the year, and so that no weeds or nothing had grown up, so you could see everything, right? Well, I figured I was trapping three entrances on this house, and I figured I had it all covered, right? There were 6, and I never even found the biggest one,
Really?
Yeah, I never even found
sometimes, was it, you're on the ice, so you don't know how far that beaver lodge goes out into the water. Maybe there's 3 or 4 more feet of sticks out there, and there's a run out further. You just don't,
what I found was fascinating was at some point, the hole's that big where they go up, where they come out of the water or whatever, up into the inside, right? It's that big. But sometimes that'll go out, and that might be 8 or 9 feet wide out where you can get at it, and they have this canopy over top with all the trees and everything. So even though you're sitting in the run, you may not, they can swim around it, 9 of them can swim around it at once, right? That was the fascinating part about looking at that. And, lots of, because I think you do as a lot as well, but I target the lodge itself. I like that one, getting that, covering that hole right there. And lots of times when you find the hole, and however you find it, you take and shove down your stand or whatever, and it's like it's springy, right? And what it is it's that mat of willows sticking out over top of the hole in that. And originally that was all filled with mud, but that current from them swimming in and out washes all the mud out from in between those twigs, those.
Sure.
And so
I never
you just got
thought about that.
Well, yeah, well, I knew instantly when I looked at it. God, don't tell me my animal is the beaver. Oh. Most trappers have an animal. Why couldn't I have a cool one like a wolf or whatever? But because sometimes you'll have a problem, be having a problem with wolves or whatever, and then somebody like Morley Smith comes with you, and it's like he says something, and instantly he's exactly right. And I also know that I'd have never made that leap on my own, But when I was with the beaver there, when I realized why the sticks in that had no mud in them around the hole, and why when you're pushing down that stand and it's springy and all that, you just need to go up further. But then you might be going out further, and they might have come out and wide and gone each side of, right? It's sure strange. Oh yeah, it is strange once you get to take a peek at stuff like that.
And a lot, for someone that doesn't trap a lot of beaver, most people think, you get to a beaver run and you just set the run, and and it's the same thing every time. Man, the runs can vary. They can be this wide, and you're thinking to yourself, how can a beaver get out of this hole? Or it says it's this big around, you're thinking you got a beaver the size of a truck, or I found where they have logs in there and they actually are coming out in 3 different spots. And you think, even though it's a shallow run, now you're going, how am I going to, get these beaver?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing every time, but it's not the same thing every time. It's can always be something different. But I was just so excited. Things that get me excited are shallow bank dens. I love I trap, I trap the lodge obviously. Shallow bank dens are my thing. If I bring somebody with me, I just start at the point where I think that there's gonna be a bank den, and I just walk with my chisel, and I just and you can hear just like going up to a house. If the ice is thin but it's not paper thin, you can hear that hollow noise, and you're getting closer to that bank den. And even though the ground might be this far away, you pump your chisel in 4 inches from the bank, and it goes right through like you're punching through a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You pull it out, and a bunch of air comes out, and then I'll usually shove the chisel in, and now I find out it's like 14 inches deep, and you just know that that's going to be just such a great set. And
Yeah.
especially if you find 2 or 3 of those on a big lodge, and you're going to get maybe a half dozen sets in, so you just know tomorrow there's going to be beaver, or you think you're sure there's going to be beaver, and then you show up the next day and there's none, and you're like, what happened here? I don't, the beaver take a couple days off. Did your activity outside scare them? It makes you double guess what you're doing. Like, did I lose what the trapping mojo? They can drive a guy off a wall, especially a trap shy beaver. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you've ran into your share of smart beaver.
Yeah.
They get a strap on their nose or on their foot or whatever, and guy can lose sleep at night trapping them.
And for them, just about the only solution for them seems to be a foothold on a drowner. Because a beaver has an incredible nose. Like if you've ever taken and set a caster mound and then set a trail cam on it, and you watch them use their nose, you'll think that, God, it's got better nose than a hound dog, and it's got no ears. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just astounded at how well they smell.
Yeah, I've set a few trail cameras up. I actually have some video at home from the spring that I didn't, of a trap shy beaver. I actually didn't get a beaver out of this one pond. It was at a golf course, and I was told that they had never been trapped before, originally. And I went and I set, it was right at the end of season. I was about to start work, and they're like, hey, can you try to catch up a few of these beaver? And I put up a trail camera on like the easiest caster mound. Like it was a gimme, and all of a sudden I go there, and there's a big beaver. It's, probably, 50 plus pounds, and it's got its nose way up in the air. It can smell that caster and this and that. And man, it goes up and it's just staring at the trap, and it's literally putting its paws on it. And, there's something about that trap. And sure enough, it just shows a beaver. It's not easy, but it climbs up and goes around that 330, and you can see his hind end by the trap, and the trap fires, and he makes a break for it. And I ended up showing some of that video to the people that own the golf course, and and they're like, well, somebody did trap them, last fall, and they didn't get any. They had a bunch of sprung traps. If I would have known that, then I probably would have used some number fours on some drowning rods or snare. I do like snaring too. I like it under the ice, because in the springtime it can do some fur damage. But that's also my other. If I can't get them in a foothold, there's been a few times where I've had to hang them, a dozen snares around the lodge to get that last beaver.
Do you do ADC, or is this just you're trapping for fur?
Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here, and it's no secret that I'm a big fan of coffee. Our friends at Old Smokes smoke roast their coffee beans over wood fires. You have no idea how good coffee can taste until it's smoked coffee. Did you know that studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity? Yeah, it's that good. Sandy and I have teamed up with Old Smokes Coffee to make our own Trapping Inc. coffee blend. Let me introduce you to Wolverine, an ultra dark roast coffee bean smoked over maple wood fires. This is the pure, uncut trapper's fuel that keeps us laughing and trapping all day long. If you'd like to try our special blend, you can find it at www.trappinginc.com/shop. If dark roast isn't your thing, Old Smokes has 5 different coffee roasts from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee smokescoffee.com. That's OLE, smokescoffee.com, and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get back to today's show.
I do. Gosh, I'm usually just trapping for fur, but there's some people, the DNR has my number here, so they'll call me, and some actually they'll give my number to somebody else, and they'll say, hey, I got a really bad beaver problem here. What can I, when I'm usually working or if it's fall and the beaver aren't really worth nothing yet, I'll say, hey, if you can give me gas money, or if it's out of town, maybe I'll say $50, and I'll get a permit to go up there and take them. I would, if I had time, I'd like to, get licensed, and actually I've thought about opening up, an ADC, business for it, because
Right.
there's always people with beaver problems around here. The county.
Yeah. It never ends here. As a matter of fact, all the counties in Alberta have trappers hired, permanently hired, like on staff. Here in the county of Grand Prairie, my buddy Justin Wassas, who does that. I know several other trappers in other counties that their permanent full-time job is to be trapping, and overwhelmingly it is beaver. Yeah,
sure. I do. I love trapping that much to where I could almost, do that as a job. But then I think, if I get out and I work in the summertime, it makes me look forward to trapping so much more when fall and winter rolls around. Now you're not working and you're on your own time. And
that's true. That's true. I mean, that changes as good as it rests. I know, like, I go to my big line every 4 days. I leave here on the fourth day. It's a 3-hour trip from my door till the time I walk into my cabin door, and I'm out there for 3 days, and then I come home, and then I do it again. I head back out again on the fourth day. So it's a lot of mileage and all that. And when I'm out there, I mean, I make huge trip when it's in December and it's the links and everything is open. I'll do 300 kilometers in the time that I'm out there on a snowmobile, right? And it just, that's because I've got so much that's open and everything's going. Everything from Wolverine through Martin and Fisher and mink and lynx and wolf and coyote and you name it. I usually save the beaver and otter for a little bit later in the year, like January, February. I will start into the otter, and they start the 1st of December, but I don't go after them then. I've got too many other things to do. And otter, I'm only allowed a dozen otter, and if I really wanted to get after my dozen otter, I could have them in 4 days. You know what I mean? Sure. They're easy to target in the snow, man.
They just, they leave such easy trails, and and you can usually find them, at any little creek, or here, like I said, we have a lot of small fishing lakes, and there'll be culverts under the railroad tracks and wherever, and it's just massive, otter slides and otter toilets, and yeah, it's and the same thing with them. They're easy to catch, and when you set an otter trap, for sure that you're gonna get one, or two in the next couple of days.
Yeah. So with your beaver, do you process them yourself? Do you skin and flesh, or?
I don't anymore. I used to, gosh, a few, probably 8 years ago, I used to do my own processing. And then now I live in an apartment building, so it's a little tough it's tough to do any processing. I can't.
People aren't too understanding, are they?
No, there was that last, gosh, how long ago was it? 2013, I think 2013, rat prices skyrocketed around here, and I put beaver trapping on the back burner, and my fur buyer was like, you know what, start trapping rats first, like November 1st, as soon as it opens, I'm buying, unskinned, $8 average, any size, whatever, and I'm like, okay. So I now, and I got quite a few rat traps, and so I put the beaver stuff away, and I'm out trapping, and now, I could only make that trip like once every week and a half. So now what am I going to do because it wasn't, it wasn't 10 degrees out. I couldn't freeze them anywhere. Well, I had a very large chest freezer in upstairs in my apartment. So I would come out here and I'd skin them all, and I would literally have a box and I would carry them upstairs, and people are just like, what, is this? And they even called the police on me. They're like, this guy's, this guy's psycho. He's freezing dead animals in his freezer, and I grew up around here, so they came over, they had to kind of check it out, whatever. And I'm like, well, I told them, I showed them my freezer, and I was freezing rats, just the skin ones. But yeah, people, they weren't impressed with me when I was trying to put all the rats up in my freezer.
My best
But
story about my best story about that was a friend of mine. He's passed now, but he's an outfitter, and so the outfitters around here always buy beaver carcasses for bear baiting, right? It's like the ultimate bait, just the way the flesh is and the fat, and it never dries out. It's always oily and smelly. And anyway, Greg had bought a whole bunch of beaver carcasses off a trapper, and he's got just this, like, I don't know, it's like a 7 by 14 foot trailer. It's just got, I don't know, 16-inch sideboards, maybe 12-inch sideboards, something like that. And then there's beavers heaped up all in the middle. He's got hundreds of beaver in there, right? There's this mountain of beaver, and he's going down the road, and the cops pull him over. And the cop says, "You can't be doing this." And Greg says, "Why?" He says, "This ain't legal." He says, "What? Did one fall out?" "Well, no." But he says, "You can't have all these dead animals in the back." He says, "Well, yeah, I bought them." Well, so the cop was pretty new to his job, and it's like a really hot day, like it's 85 or 30 degrees Celsius, and so it's hot, and all these beaver there. And Greg telling me this story. He says you could watch them swell in the heat.
Oh my
God. as we sat alongside of the road, and he says every now and then one of them would start to off gas, and he says sometimes you'd hear it. He said you hear this big old beaver fart go off, right? And he said I'd know when the cop walked through the fog, because he said he'd start gagging, right? Finally they got a hold of an old sergeant that knew what was going on, and the fact that it was all legal and everything else, and the guy let him go, and he was still like, this should be illegal. You're good to go, but this should be illegal.
Oh my gosh.
Hey folks, Rich here with some exciting news from trappinginc.com. We were listening when you said you wanted more clothing, and we heard you loud and clear. We've expanded our clothing line, more colors, men's, ladies, and children's sizes, more variety. Living off grid gives more time for the creative juices to flow. New humorous observations are added weekly, as well as our classic Trapping Inc. logo. We have joined forces with TeePublic. You can find our TeePublic storefront from the store page on trappinginc.com. Just go to www.trappinginc.com/shop and just scroll down to find the link for our Trapping Inc. storefront. Or you can go to teepublic.com and enter Trapping Inc. TV in the search bar at the top. Check it out. Big sales every month, and you can save up to 35%. Don't miss out. Get your favorite gear today. And now let's get back to today's show.
I actually have another opposite story. I quit processing myself, but my fur buyer used to have a plant about an hour from here, and I would quit quit spring beaver trapping, and I would go down, I would skin beaver for him. That's all I do. He'd do piecework for me, It was like $2 a beaver. I'd go down there and I would literally skin from 5 a.m. to like 8 or 9 p.m. And this was probably 12 or 15 years ago. And I was driving back from there one time late at night, and I got pulled over. Well, I didn't wear an apron. I just blue jeans, this t-shirt, I didn't even wear rubber gloves at the time. And, skinning for that many hours, you'd wash your hands, but the big thick ring would just be on there. And I just remember I'm sitting there, and I could see the flashlight coming up, and I could see it like going down, and he got on my pants where all the blood was, and he like slowed down, and I looked back and I could see him like reaching down, like, and he's like, "What is going on?" He's like, "Why are you all covered in blood?" And then I explained to him that I'm processing beaver, in this town for this guy, and he ended up actually like calling the guy and talking to him, because a guy covered in head to toe like this.
Yeah.
He was just like, okay. He's like, I've never seen nothing like this. So, I come walking up and I'm thinking like, like mass murderer.
No,
But
I know. And when I was a kid, I mean, in hunting season around here ran from middle of August till middle of December, and we had moose and two different kind of deer and elk and bear and everything that we hunted and all that time. Everybody wandered around covered in blood. Like, I mean, if you went to to the hardware store or whatever, or the cafe downtown, or people be sitting there and they'd have blood on them, and it was just that was the culture, right? In today's world, the same town, you'd get arrested, or for sure you'd be had a
oh,
severe questioning.
I get some really weird looks when I'm, because I wear neoprene waders all day long when I'm beaver trapping, even out in the wintertime. And I don't know why, but every time I'll wear them into the gas station, get gas. It's January, snow on the ground, and everybody automatically thinks I'm ice fishing. Oh, you ice fishing? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, why are you wearing waders? I'm like, oh, I'm trapping. And they're like, huh, I figured you'd have been ice fishing. Mm, yeah.
So the 330,
Oh,
your favorite set then is under ice, or do you do
yeah.
much in open water?
I do mostly under ice sets, I'll let's just say the 330 Conair is my favorite set. I really like a shallow bank den, or if I can find a crossover, from one pond to another where they're doing all their cutting, open water. Oh my, you just know there's going to be something in there, whether it's going to be a beaver or a tree that he was carrying.
Yeah, that happens.
Definitely a 330. There's, I one of my best feelings is getting to a trap, and the next day there's a half-inch ice over it, and you get there and and you can see there's a big air bubble in that trap, and as soon as you chop around it, you can, like a lot of times you can see down there, and you can see that the 330 is sprung and that there's a gap in the jaws, and
Yeah.
it's just and then I like to bring friends with, some people had never trapped before. I've had people, I'm setting a bank den that's 50 yards from the beaver lodge, and I catch a beaver going up in the bank, and they're just mind blown. Like, how did you know this beaver was going to go up into this hole under this thing, you know?
Yeah.
And they just think it's the best thing in the world, you know?
Well, that's cool. When you set, do you use stands, or do you use a pole? How do you like to set those under the
I
ice?
I have a love-hate relationship with H stands. Let's just say that. I I used to use quite a few of them, and I had a lot of sprung traps. And
Really?
my dad always taught me to use sticks, because on each stand you set it, and you put the springs down there and you can fold them up. I've always been able to get, the trap on I'll flip the trap sideways and run the stick through both the eye ring, and then the trap swings, and then a lot of people ask me about my swivel stick I put in, because then you have the top corner of the jaws right here, and
Mhm.
I'll run that stick through the top corner of the jaws, and the trap can't swing back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
But I can hold that stick in the chain and get that trap in such a small area of brush if I have to, and that's the way I prefer to do it. But you get to a beaver lodge that has no sticks. Well, how do you set a trap you know,
Well, that's just
without
it.
sticks?
Yeah.
So I do have a couple dozen H stands, and they are fast. I use my videos in the spring. I will literally be like, I have an H stand here. I don't like it, but I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Well, yeah, they are nice, and they are quick.
Yeah.
But if I can, I'll bring my gators, and I'll try to push the springs out on a shallow bank den, and I'll put the trap right on the bottom and just run a stick through each spring.
Yep.
So it's square over the hole. That's probably my favorite way to set a 330 if I can.
So you like to set to the bottom?
Yep, I like to set it to the bottom, um, and that's not always the case. That's another tough part about setting a lodge. People, they ask me often, like, where do you set the beaver trap on a lodge? Well, if I get in the run, and the run is nice hard bottom, then I'll put the trap right on the bottom. But if it's muddy, and I'll put my foot back, and you can feel the hole's kind of big, they're sailing out, but they're not right on the bottom anymore, because they're not pushing off, getting the bottom hard. Then I'll usually set it like 10 inches off the bottom. And it's kind of something you learn from trapping over time. You guess yourself where you want to put that trap at.
So you're in the water doing this then?
Sometimes I am. Generally I'll get in the water, I'll chop a hole with my chisel, I'll get in the water, and I'll if I'm using sticks, I'll get two, always dead sticks, of course, and I'll put a stick on each side to channel the beaver through the set, and then I'll decide how I want to set that trap. Then I'll climb out, and then I can do the set from on top of the ice because I mentally know what I want to do,
Right.
down there.
Right.
If it seems like from right up against the lodge, it's always on the bottom. But if, like you said, the feed pile goes out or something, a little bit off, then that trap could be, I've had it where it's even like 2 feet off the bottom. It sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you set much any baited ones then?
My baited sets are pretty limited,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I have done them, I've used potatoes. I've done a lot of, popple
Yeah.
on sticks. I've never done PVC. There's a friend of mine in town, actually my cousin. He does a lot of baited sets during the wintertime. I need a snowmobile or a 4-wheeler. I don't have either. And man, I tell you what, spring beaver trapping is really tough when you got to carry them all out.
Oh yeah. It's so funny because one of our dear old friends, he's in his late 70s now, and he's trapper. He's been a trapper since he's 14. He went to the bush for the winter of his 14th year on this earth, and he lived in a lean-to, and he trapped. And Sandy was talking to him and says, then 2 years later he got a snowmobile, and she said, oh, so you could go further? He says, well, no. He says, then I didn't have to pack everything back. And I was like, it was such a realization that everything he caught all day long, he had to pack back because it's all frozen, right?
Sure.
He has to pack it back, and he has to thaw it in his lean-to that he spent the whole winter in this country.
God.
Tough, wow, tough. And and so then I, thinking like, I don't know, like I ask him, what's the toughest thing about trapping out of a lean-to, and thinking that you might get cold at night or have enough wood or whatever. Well, he says your fur doesn't dry evenly.
I couldn't even imagine keeping a lean-to up to temperature where it could dry. I mean,
oh my God, like this guy was just unbelievable, and it was so amazing. Oh, he's such a great guy to talk to. And one of the things that I love to do with this is to talk to so many people and keep spreading those stories, because that's the only way this culture stays alive, right? And there are
absolutely
so many people like this old fella that we're going to lose, and it's so unfortunate. With the your set, I find it fascinating when you talk about learning to read the bottom, whether it's hard or soft, or that. A lot of our stuff here is soft, and the only time that you could really be sure that they're on the bottom is there'll actually be a groove, right? For me, that's what I look for, because most of our bottoms are mud, but they will, even if it's mud, they still have that groove in there, right? So you gotta feel, and then they'll be deeper here, and that tells you to get it down there. I use a flexible pipe to figure out what depth or figure out where that hole is, and that kind of stuff. It's kind of, because we do everything from up on top of the ice. I mean, I could never chop a hole big enough for I could get into, or it would be way too deep. Like lots of times those 4-foot H stands aren't tall enough, right? So then you end up hanging off of you'll just hang off of pair of cables or pair of chains to go down. I tried the white PVC pipe, and I had so many sprung traps, and I was wondering, like, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I did it 2 different winters, probably had never caught a beaver in it, and probably had 30 sprung traps. And like, you don't often have a sprung trap under the water and not have something in it. So I was just wondering if it was muskrat spring into it, or what's going on?
You know, and if you think about PVC pipe, picture a, let's just say, 1.5 inch piece of popple and an 1.5 inch piece of PVC. A beaver swims up, and as he bites onto that, if he's biting onto, think of how smooth that is.
Yeah.
If he bit onto it, that's gonna, I'd imagine that would kind of shoot off one way or another. With a popple, there's wood bed bark, and he would get a hold of that thing.
Yeah.
And that was one of my thought processes, because my cousin-in-law that did it, he did catch a few beaver, but he said that he definitely had a lot more misses with PVC.
Yeah.
And
I wondered. I truly wondered about that. Yeah, all I did was just split it so that you could put it over one of the jaws, right?
Sure.
And so then it could roll in there or whatever, but maybe I guess the thing is that the piece that we're missing is we don't have any underwater footage of what they do when they come up. Do they touch it with their front feet, or do they just grab it with their teeth, or
I would like to, that's one of my goals. Is I've thought so many times about getting a GoPro on one of my traps underwater. Even if maybe I gotta, get a power box somehow and just put 8 hours of video, and just hope that one comes in within the first couple hours, or
yeah,
whatnot.
that would be cool. That would be cool. I would really like to know what they do when they go up to it, because I don't know. I've never witnessed it. I mean, I've watched them, when they, lots of times when people set a trap in open water, and they'll have, half it sticking out of the water, right? And they expect that the beaver just swim through it. Well, they don't like to do that. But if you put it just slightly underneath the water and put a stick across it, well, they will naturally come up and dive under that stick, right?
Sure.
Right into the
Yep.
trap. And people just don't understand it. And when they do the crossovers and they have that trap sitting up on top of the dam, well, it should be on the other side of the dam, so they can't see it when they swim up. They got to get up and on top, and then when they're going over to the other side, well, then they're moving, because that's when they're in the most danger, right?
Yeah, they have that downward what's the word I'm looking for?
The momentum, the
downward momentum.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, their predators wait for them on the other side. That's just the way it is. Like, I mean, because they can't see the other side. So once they commit and go over, they're moving. But if you have it sticking up where they can see it, well, then it's not such a good deal. It's interesting anyway. I mean, I find it fascinating how this works. And like, I have really wondered, especially when I started having so many misses with the with that white PVC, I started wondering, like, how do they actually grasp it or touch it or whatever? And people talk about putting a carrot or whatever underwater, and it's like, well, it's not like they can smell it. It's not like,
No.
I mean, a muskrat can eat underwater, but they're the only animal that can eat underwater. Just the way that they have a dual folding set of lips, and they can actually close off the water going into their mouth and chew with their teeth on basically on the outside of these lips. Okay. And it's
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so they can actually chew underwater, but beaver can't. So they must, you know what? Just sitting there reasoning through it, they must go up and grab that with their teeth, and that's why then so many misses. Though I don't get that.
And the other thing so one pond I trapped had a couple I caught 2 beaver. They were big beaver. They were like mid 50 pounders. And I use a lot of different traps. I got Victor, I got Duke, I got Belial. I usually catch at least 1 beaver a year by the front foot in a Belial.
Yeah.
And in one particular lodge, I didn't get them on the lodge, but I got both of them on a bank, and I got both of those beaver by a front foot in the 330. And I'm just thinking, exactly, what one thought process was, and it wasn't a shallow bank then. It was a pretty deep bank then with a big hole. And all I can think of is, that beaver swims up to the bank then, and I think they hit the bottom, and I think they're walking into that bank den.
I won't disagree with you on that at all.
That's that's the only thought process I can think of why you would get one by the front foot ever.
I've watched muskrat in shallow, clear water, and in those situations, they're walking. And so it looks like to me like they're walking, I mean,
Sure.
they're light on their feet, but because they're kind of sort of floating, but they're basically walking, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that always stumped me because sometimes if I have another trap, because if they don't close that last, inch or whatever, you're not going to get them by a front foot. So sometimes you'll have a sprung trap and it gets you like, why? Well, this should be a guarantee,
Yeah.
Was it a muskrat? Were they walking into it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your YouTube channel, 330 Maniac, right?
Yep. 330 Maniac.
And when did you start that?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna say 8 years ago.
Okay.
I'd have to look back at my first upload. I would say about 8 years ago. And I get a lot of questions. How did 330 Maniac come about? It's kind of a different name.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I was out trapping one day, and I had set up, like, I found this colony. It wasn't a very big pond, but there was 3 lodges on this pond. Like 2 of them were like 20 feet apart, and then there was another big one over here. And I ended up setting like 14 330s on this pond. And the homeowner come down and he's like, oh, what kind of traps you set? I'm like, these are 330s, He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you're setting these things like a maniac. So I came up with 330 Maniac. And the other funny part is, or the word maniac, the M is capitalized and the N is capitalized. And that stands for, that's just Minnesota abbreviated.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Yep. So that's how 330 Maniac came about.
Oh, that's cool though. And you originally started out in trapping.
Yep. It was all trapping. It's like anything else, you start out, especially 8 years ago. How long should my videos be? Right away, I'm like I got to make an awesome video, So one of my first, I don't know, like 4 episodes in or 5 episodes in, I got like an hour and 18-minute long beaver trapping episode. I trapped 8 lodges in a row, and I'm like, this is the ultimate trapping video. And then I find out that nobody wants to sit and watch trapping for 2 hours.
Well, no, I mean, everything you want to know about how long videos should be. YouTube says that if somebody watches your video for 3 seconds, that's counted as a view. 3 seconds. So it seems like we get all of our stuff has to be edited for TV. So you actually have 22 minutes and 30 seconds of footage, right? And the rest is taken up by commercial breaks and all that kind of stuff. And we still get lots of, I wish it was longer kind of stuff at that length, but I'm betting that you'd be short of an hour before people, you'd probably want to be at maybe 30 minutes would probably be maximum, right?
And most of my videos nowadays, I try to keep them about anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes, my trapping videos. And I'll tell you what, my trapping videos, if the guy were to look through them, I love doing ice fishing videos, but I'll tell you what, my trapping videos get 3 times as many views, 4 times as many likes, more comments, and the view duration. A fishing video might have 7 minutes of view, and let's say if I got a 30-minute video, it's got 19 minutes of view.
Yeah.
It's literally triple what I think the reasoning is, with fishing, sure, you're catching a big fish, but people want to see you pull that big fish out of the hole. They don't want to see you jigging,
No.
Trapping, they're like, oh, he's going to set this trap. I want to see exactly what he does, and you explain what you're putting here and where you're putting your trap. And, and you have, people, that's something you can learn from. Sure, you can show someone what to use fishing and how to jig it, but that takes a minute, where trapping, requires that skill where you show people, because they don't, somebody starts a trap and they don't know exactly where to put that stick or exactly why you're putting that trap there. So the view duration goes quite a ways.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, our lifetime, our view duration for our entire channel for the lifetime of it is like 9 minutes and 34 seconds. And which is, people look at you like bull. That's what they say. That's BS. And so then I just shoot them a screenshot off of my channel analytics, right? And they're like, can't believe that. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that though, the kind of person that watches the trapping stuff, they're very technical, they're trying to learn, they're interested in all that. And I mean, it's fascinating because you and I both whack a lot of beavers, but you do it differently than I do, and it's so interesting to look at watch somebody else do it and then ask them why and how and where did that idea come from, those kind of things. What's your best when things went wrong beaver story or trapping story?
Well, I got a kind of a serious, I got a couple of quick stories. I got a serious story and a funny story. I was trapping one time with a buddy of mine, and it was like 18 below actual temp, and the wind was blowing, and it was like more negative 40. And we had walked about 200 yards out to this lodge, and I hadn't had a beaver for a couple of days, and I didn't really catch that many beaver out of this lodge. Well, I chopped open this run, and even though I'd used the dead stick, the stick came floating up, and the beaver chewed it off. I said, "Oh my, okay, why do you use stick?" Well, I had this trail that I had walked every day. I'd checked it, safe, safe passage to this area. And luckily I was carrying my chisel with me, but I'm just walking across this bog, and the beaver had dug a new run. And I stepped in a snowbank, and my buddy was like, "It looked like you just jumped into a snowbank." Because I went all the way down to like right about here in my elbow, and I had my chisel on, and I grabbed and I pulled myself out, but it was, negative 40 some wind chill, and we're 200 or 300 yards from the truck. And he had helped me get back to the truck, but by the time I got back to the truck, like, just my elbows and my knees were thawed, and he got me in the truck, and he was worried about getting hit by a car. So he turned his hazards on, and his hazards had killed the battery on his truck.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I'm like starting to get hypothermic shock, and there was a house just down the road. He ended up getting down there, and they actually called an ambulance and came out and took me in the town, and I had to get my body heat up. But I think if I'd been by myself that day, that I might not have made it back. I don't know. It was getting tough for me to do, just even to walk. I was so cold, and that's one of the reasons my wife really hates it, that I go trapping by myself. I'm a lot more cautious nowadays. This was a long time ago, and it's always a chisel in my hand. That's a serious story. And then a funny story. When I first met my wife about 14 years ago, my truck broke down, and I wanted to go spring beaver trapping. Well, she had like a 1994 Chrysler New Yorker car. Yeah, trapping mobile, and she's letting me take her Chrysler New Yorker out beaver trapping, and I'm headed to the Buffalo River is what it was. And between here and where I'm trapping at, it's about 15 miles. Well, there's a big area about 3 miles where there's nothing. Cornfields, there's no pond, no nothing, beaver were worth like $25, and I was out there to trap for fun, but I really needed money at the same time. So I'm driving, and I look over, and there's this cut cornfield, and I'm like, "Oh, there's some turkeys, I'm like, "Oh, there's a big beaver." And I'm like, I go to slow down, and from nowhere, there's a huge blanket beaver sitting in the cornfield about 40 yards off the road. Well, I back up, and I think I got this stick. I'm gonna go up there, and I'm gonna hit it in the head quick, and I'll, quick $25. So I'm covered in beaver castor, mind you, and it's springtime, and I'm walking, and the wind was blowing right toward this beaver, and I'm walking, and it's sitting there, and I'm probably 20 feet away or so, and I could hear its teeth going, and I got, I don't know, 15 feet from it. I was bringing the stick back, and it turned, and it lunged at me. And I took a swing, and I hit it on top of the head, and the stick broke, and it closed its eyes and looked stunned for like 2 seconds, and I backed up, and it came after me. So I turned around. My wife's car is parked on the shoulder of the highway. It's a highway now, not a dirt road. And as I'm running back to her car, there's cars parked on the highway. They're just like, leave that beaver alone. What did he do to you? And as I'm running up the ditch, the beaver's like coming after me, and they all take off. So I'm literally playing ring around the rosy with this beaver around her car. I went around, I hit the trunk button, and the trunk opens up. And I'm walking back, and it comes around the front of the car. I run by, reach in, I grab a 330, and I run like 50 yards down the road. And I look up, and that beaver's coming. So I set it as fast as I can. And now I'm holding it out like this, and I'm walking at it because it's coming, and it was like, when I think about it, it felt like we were running at each other in slow motion, And it got where it lunged, and I literally put the trap down in front of its head, and pow, the 330 went off right on the beaver's head. And now the beaver's cartwheeling in the highway. And out of nowhere, more people showed up. They didn't see me. They didn't see that beaver trying to murder me, but they see me attacking this poor beaver. And they're yelling. I'm like, you didn't see this thing. It almost mauled me like 3 times, And oh my gosh. And I tell people that story. I ended up grabbing the 330 and going and putting it in the trunk and, going home. And of course, I didn't have, obviously at this time, I never had a GoPro or nothing, but I'm just thinking back, like, did that really just happen? And I get home and I tell my wife the story, and she's just like, you are not allowed to go trapping anymore, especially in my car. Like, people are gonna start looking for my car, slashing my tires because you're, mauling beaver in cornfields. And
that's hilarious. I mean, I've never seen a beaver in a cornfield, but that's because we don't have corn here. So
yeah,
I think I've seen them just about everywhere else, but
yeah. I said cut cornfield, like 2 miles from water, it's springtime. They're all looking for, you're getting kicked out or whatever, and turkey, beaver in a cornfield. Yeah, it was wild.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
That's still people. If I'm out with people that don't trap, and I got buddies, and it always comes up, hey, tell them about the beaver in the cornfield. That's the story.
Well, we've been going at it here for an hour and a quarter now.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I told you. We start out. We see one another for the first time when the Zoom meeting comes on, and then pretty soon we're old buddies. We'll do this again one day. So everybody can find you on YouTube at 330 Maniac.
Yep, that's correct. I also Instagram and Facebook I also have under the same.
Under 330 Maniac. Okay.
Yep, 330 Maniac.
Perfect. I appreciate you spending the time come visit with us. This has been awesome. I just love talking with everybody.
I when I don't get to talk beaver trapping with most people around here, so when I get to talk about it or trapping in general, I'm just like, oh, it's just fun here. Hearing everybody's stories, it just makes you want to go and go trapping,
Yeah. And I mean, one of the crazy side effects of this stupidity that's gone on for 16 months is that we were forced into this Zoom world, right? And it has just opened up the whole. I mean, I was of the old Joe Rogan belief, like everybody else, that you had to be sitting across the table from one another when you did a podcast. And it has changed the flow a little bit, because you don't want to cut one another off because you get feedback and latency and that kind of stuff. But I'd never get to talk to some of the people I've been able to talk to, and that's been really cool,
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you bringing me on the show and talking about everything. Well, I'm going to get us out of here, and thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us. Hope you had as much fun as we've had. How we laughed our heads off like usual. Beaver in a cornfield. That's a pretty good one. And maybe we'll see you down the line.